Good.
Distinguished actor and director Samuel West scarcely needs an introduction. I know that many of you, as I have done, will have seen him in many things on stage and screen, and radio plays, and any number of other media across the last 30 or so years, and so versatile, so intelligent, and with such heart in everything. He is also an extraordinary pleasure to talk to about these things. So not only is the depth of his craft as an actor considerable, but he's also an advocate for the role of the arts in civil society and for any number of other causes as well. Sam, I have personally enjoyed you many times in many media. Things that stand out for me in the Shakespeare zone would be your Prince Hal, when you were working with your father, Timothy West.
As full staff,
as full staff, which was memorable and wonderful. Your Hamlet for the Royal Shakespeare Company, a biting, clever, bitter, slightly disaffected, fierce Hamlet with really memorable moments from that as well. Talk about that, although what we should be doing is talking about Malvolio, because you have recently just finished a run with the Royal Shakespeare Company as Malvolio in a really standout production of Twelfth Night for the RSC. I also had the privilege of working briefly with Sam myself back in 2016 when we together made a BBC radio programme about silent Shakespeare, and Sam was the most generous and the most illuminating collaborator, and that was a really memorable day at work for me.
That was terrific.
Sam.
I so enjoyed it.
Thank you for that. Let us welcome Samuel West. So was it an easy yes for you when they asked you to play Malvolio?
No. It was quite a surprising offer. It's not a part that I had on my slate. I played Richard II and Hamlet for the Royal Shakespeare Company 25 years ago, and then became what they call an associate artist, which is basically a license for them never to call you again and just put you on their headed notepaper. And when Malvolio, then the last artistic director left, under whom I couldn't get arrested, and my partner's best friend, Tamara Harvey, took over, who knew me, and Daniel Evans, who I'd worked with in Chichester, and suddenly I got this offer. But it was a surprising one. I think I didn't, I mean, I like the play much more than I did before I'd done it. In fact, I like it much more than I did this morning. I thought that was just such a brilliant, yeah, we should clap that. It was a brilliant. It was a brilliant summation of why it's funny and why it isn't funny. And it has to be both. And I suppose that's where I started. And in that case, I'm not bad casting, because I tend to take things seriously. My friend Victoria Corrin says, I heard you voicing over something on television last night. Millions died. She said, whenever it's millions died, it's always you. The Nazis are warning from history. Millions died. And she's right. And I didn't really do any comedy for ages. And then I did Siegfried in All Creatures Great and Small. Have just done series 6 of Siegfried. And there are some laughs with those words. It's generally quite a funny program. And so the universe sort of shifts and thinks, oh, maybe he can do funny. I'd done funny on radio, but never on stage. And so Malvolio, who could be thought of as a creature of high comedy, sort of came my way, and I thought, well, he's not quite that, but I didn't quite know why he wasn't. I do now, I think.
Because the funny comes a little bit later in the play. I mean, tell us about how you mapped it.
Okay. Well, there's always a backstory to everybody. I think Malvolio has been in service most of his life. I think his father probably was. He might have been there, I'm 59, so maybe he's been there 50 years. He might have been a footboy, and then a footman, and then a valet, and then a butler, and then a steward. And if he's working as a steward in a large estate like Olivia's, he probably worked for Olivia's dad. until he died, and then probably her brother. And then when he died, he moved over. She trusts him. He's good at his job. Twice in the first scene, he gets told what you will to get rid of him. Do your thing. Improvise, which he does. So he's trustworthy. He has the power to hire and fire everybody under him. He has the run of a really large estate, and he's probably quite well paid. 19th century rates, he might be on £200 a year, which would be 40 times what a servant girl would get. So I think that's where I started.
19th century rates being relevant because?
Because we're sort of set roughly then, and because although I come in at one point reading a copy of Hello magazine, which was very useful. There's a line in so there is what's the word to use? There is something for it. The lady of the strait, she married the yeoman of the wardrobe. There is example for it. There is example for it. The lady of the strait, she married the yeoman of the wardrobe. Malvolios, beautifully, when Simon Russell Beale played this, he had a little yellowing press cutting in his wallet about the lady of the strait, she having married the yeoman of the wardrobe. The yeoman of the wardrobe is a minor servant. And I thought the lady of the strait, she and the yeoman of the wardrobe should be in Hello magazine, inviting us into their lovely home. So I showed the audience, saying, look, it can happen that a servant marries his mistress. That's really important to him. So he's got a sort of sideline in gossip, and an entire life in service. We did a really interesting game, really, which you should always do if you're rehearsing a big play, which is to put everybody in status order. So you have Olivia and Orsino at the top, sort of arguing about who's got the bigger estate, but presumably, as the man, he might be thought senior, I don't know. She's obviously doing pretty well, or Aguecheek wouldn't want to marry her. And she doesn't need a man. That's really important. She's economically independent. And then all the titled people who work for Orsino and Curio and all that. And then the servants. And I'm top of them. And then it goes down to the butler and the valet and the gardeners. And then the priest is over there because she's in a different game. So I'm top of all those people, but I'm below absolutely everybody who has a title. And I can never be in that gang. I'm not invited to that party. That breeds a lot of feeling. I don't know whether it's erotic feeling. I think it's more to do with a desire for power. I didn't really think, other than the fact that she's gorgeous and you wouldn't chuck her out of bed for making crumbs, that Malvolio had particularly strong erotic feelings for Olivia. But what he does have is a desire for power. And that comes from never having quite had it. And being better than a lot of the people who get to tell him what to do. Because he's clever. He's self-taught. I gave him a little bit of an Esturine accent. Because a slightly more nasal version of my own South London. I sound quite RP now, but when I go and watch my football team, Wimbledon, AFC Wimbledon, I come out talking like this. Because that's where I grew up. So he became a little bit more nasal. Because I just wanted to be with the plays. I think the play is quite pompous about that. The play sees his pretension as impossible. Nowadays, I'm doing one now in All Creatures Great and Small. People say, when are you and Mrs. Hall going to get together? Sorry, that doesn't mean anything to you if you don't watch it. She's my housekeeper. And nowadays they just say, well, they're just married. But they don't. She's my employee. It's 1937. We don't do that sort of thing. Well, imagine that in 1601 times a million. And the play thinks it's outrageous. But of course, Malvolio doesn't think it's outrageous. So I think you start from a man who's good at his job, who's been there a long time, who knows how to run the estate. And there's this wonderful 1825 book called The Complete Servant, written by a couple. He was a butler, she was a housekeeper, telling you how to be the perfect servant. And also telling you that some are born servants and some are born masters. And that's the way God wants it. And incidentally, this is what you have to do to set up a really good wine cellar, which is really hard in 1825. You can't just go down to odd bins and buy it in and lay it down. You're decanting it yourself. You're keeping the temperature right. You're pulling all the casks in by crane. It's really hard to set up a good wine cellar. That's what Malvolio's done. And then Toby comes in and drinks it all. You said what fuels this topsy-turviness? I think the honest answer is alcohol. Malvolio's a Puritan. He doesn't drink. It's Christmas. Everybody's pissed. Seriously, all the time. And Twelfth Night is the night when you take the decorations down, and you have to get back, as you said, to mid-January. And Toby's, of course, he's got a point. But then he comes in and says, dost thou think, because thou art any more than a steward? I mean, what a vile thing to say to somebody. People think he's funny because he's sort of jolly and a jolly drunk. Ours wasn't a jolly drunk. That was really important. Joplin Sibtain was alcoholic. He cried, he broke down, just cried, and he was vicious. When he put me into prison, it was just like, I'm going to get him. And then suddenly I was in prison because he thought it might be funny. So the only other thing to add, I've talked enough about this, but the thing to add is to say that the stream of 19th century criticism that says, we are through the looking glass, just as we are in As You Like It. And I was really pleased that you pointed out that when it comes in the canon means we're really not. We're halfway to The Winter's Tale, and we're around Hamlet. If we take these creatures seriously, they're not funny. And I read a lot of this. And there are people like Irving who tried to play him seriously, and Benson who tried to play him seriously. And everyone went, it's not funny. So I said to Prasanna Purnaraja very early on, look, I said, quoting these 19th century, pretending it was me, but basically quoting these 19th century. It seems to me that if we take this seriously, the gulling of Malvolio is monstrous, and it stops being funny. And he said, immediately, we are going to take it seriously, it does stop being funny, and it is monstrous. And I said, right, where do I sign? I'll be in that production then. And that was an enabling, totally freeing thing. So, then I thought, there are as many Malvolios as there are productions. So I thought, well, I'll be in the one that needs me to be that then.
And there are as many Malvolios as there are productions, and you've mentioned Irving and Benson. I mentioned Herbert Beerbone.
Yes, I borrowed his staff.
Did you?
Well, I think he borrowed it from somebody else, but sorry, Tree, sorry, Rada. But, I mean, everybody nicks. I just wanted something really, really thin and vertical and white.
Simon Russell Beale, I'm sure we all remember other Malvolios as well. Stephen Berkoff says, when you take to the stage in any large, well-known Shakespearean role, it's like a process of boxing with ghosts, and you're going, out of my way, you, out of my way, you who are inhabiting the history of this role. I need to clear you away somehow from this stage space so that I can occupy it in fresh, minted ways. And actors vary in how they talk about that sort of inherited legacy of those who've inhabited the role before them, and that you seem to be embracing and thinking about all that and then finding your own space in it. Actually, you're taking on props as a point of continuity from some of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you nick from good people, that's all right, I think. Everybody nicks. Just, it's about the question of, do you have the right taste, I suppose? Do you share things? I mean, I love boxing with ghosts. That's great. I've never heard that before. Two things to say about that. I mean, if you play Hamlet or Henry V, it feels like inheriting a crown, struggling on under it for a bit and passing it on with gratitude to the next person lucky enough to have the chance. And I played Hamlet for a year and 3 days, and I didn't really enjoy it until I'd done it. And on the morning after, I felt probably the greatest exhilaration I've ever felt as an actor, or possibly as a person, because the pleasure comes in retrospect. Because at the time, it's bloody hard. I mean, it's not mining, don't get me wrong, but it's a very big, difficult part. There's one thing I want to pick you up on, which is that Malvolio is not a big part. It's exactly a fifth the size of Hamlet. It's mostly costume changes. There's a lot of costume changes, and it's a difficult part. I was in the place, if I hadn't done anything at the RSC before, I might have said no, because it's tricky. On the other hand, Hamlet, Richard II, and Malvolio was a nice trio. It doesn't sort of narrow me down. I can go anywhere from there.
It's not a big part in terms of number of lines, but it is the part in which actor-manager Herbert Beerbone casts himself.
Yes.
You know, it has a stature and a kind of above the parapet kind of position as a character, which makes it part of that a big part tradition. And you don't have that many lines relative to some big parts, but it is a very map-up. I mean, it has an extraordinary trajectory. You've talked about how you thought about your backstory and you thought about your status as part of those things in relation to the community around you, and how there's this sort of simmering resentment about never being able to be titled, which is the impetus which makes you very susceptible to the how about marrying a countess. Oh yes, there's one quite handy available who apparently wants you, and how quick you Malvolio are to say, yes, I'm here, I'm ready, and I'm willing to play my part in this excellent drama. And then you get taken through the whole torment, and then before that point, you have to appear in the famous yellow stockings, which did appear in my husband's slightly confused version. Yellow stockings were part of the version of the story this morning at breakfast. Cross-dressing. So yellow stockings also have that kind of above the parapet recognition value. Your yellow stockings were, if I may say so, something else, Sam.
Thank you.
It was a very un-Sam West moment, if it's possible to say such a thing.
It absolutely is, and I'm very pleased and proud you said so.
Your own versatility as an actor.
We should talk about that.
Please do.
I would just think about is it Massingham? Who's the person who sees it
Manningham,
in Manningham?
Yeah.
When Manningham sees it in 1601, he goes and sees it at...
It's all about Malvolio.
It's all about Malvolio, it's the only thing he remembers.
Yeah.
A good, what does he call it? I don't know. Anyway, that's the bit he remembers. Yeah, I said to James, our designer, I think he should look, and I think I may have slightly wankily used the word magnificent, because I thought he might have sort of, he's a Puritan and he's frightened of decoration, he's frightened of colour, he's frightened of laughter. No, he's against laughter, he's anti-laughter, he's anti-joy. He has no friends in the audience, that's important. If he had his way, the playhouse would be destroyed, shut, closed down. That's important. And that's dangerous now because, we're fighting against those people and trying to keep the playhouses open. So let's not forget that. But he secretly loves it too. Desmond Barrett, when he wanted to go at the RSC 5 Malvolios ago, when he got the instruction to wear yellow stockings, came back, went to his bedroom closet, opened it, and it was entirely full of yellow clothes, which is a very good gag. I think he's got an old pair of yellow stockings from when he was a butler, 20 years before. I don't think anybody's seen them. I think Mariah hasn't seen them and went, let's remind him of those. I think she's just mentioned them. And it's the only bit of the letter that he gets that he can't quite make apply to him. So he completely fools himself. He goes, yes, of course she mentioned my yellow stock. God, I must have forgotten. Yes, she loved those. He's completely making it up. We know before he comes on, because he's practicing bowing to his own shadow, making shapes before he comes on, which is when I came on with Hello Magazine. So he's in a very, very fecund place to be gulled. And this is where you come in, because he's a pompous ass. You take him seriously, and that's why he's funny. If you make him ridiculous to start with, it's not funny when he goes down. You want him to see him taken down a peg or 7, and you will. But when he picks up the letter, I talked to the audience, and I said, this is her writing. These are her very phrases. Look, this is her seal. Nobody said anything. Don't read it. It's not by her, somebody could have said. But you didn't, did you? You wanted to see me in yellow stockings up a pole. So you're culpable. And at the end, I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you, which wasn't as controlled as I gave it then, is all of you. Because you wanted that funny scene, and you saw me in prison. The other thing that what's his name again? Manningham says is, oh, it's really funny when they pretended that he was possessed by the devil. That's not funny anymore. The bit where he starts, that they do different voices and tie him up in the straitjacket, brings the house down in 1601. That really isn't funny anymore. We take mental health a bit more seriously, so that's really useful. But I'm going to talk about yellow stockings just for one go. So James, I said, he said, do you know about sock suspenders? And I said, yeah, I did think about sock suspenders. He said, do you know about shirt suspenders? And I said, no, what are those? It's the opposite of sock suspenders. So you wear them around your thighs to keep your dress shirt, down, which, is very useful. I believed that. He said, he's got both of those things. I said, yes, of course he has. He's a butler. Of course he's got both of those things. He's got his master's old sock suspenders and shirt suspenders. So then he puts them on, and Prasanna said, yeah, but that's not cross-gartered, is it? And cross-gartering is a fashion that young bachelors did in the early 17th century. A bit like Marlon Brando in The Wild One wearing a leather jacket. Fast and young, absolutely not Malvolio's scene. So he does what he thinks cross-gartering is. He gets a little bit of black elastic, and he puts a cross between this shirt suspender and the other one. And he can sew, because all valets can sew a button on. And he does that, and he looks in the mirror, he thinks, I think that might look faintly ridiculous. On the other hand, that's what she wants. It's like when somebody says, this piece of lingerie is slightly uncomfortable. That's not the point. That's not why I asked you to wear it. If this is going to turn her on, I think in all justice, I have to wear this.
But it does make some obstruction in the blood.
It does make this and that's one of the other obstacles I'm overcoming in a Stanislavskian term is the fact that my leg's gone to sleep. I look slightly ridiculous. I think I might be. And when you arrive at the Royal Shakespeare Company, they give you a questionnaire. What things do you not like doing, they say. I said, well, working at height. I'm not really good at working at height. Also, I broke my Achilles tendon, and I had knee surgery, and my legs are slightly different sizes, so I'm slightly self-conscious about my legs. Also, not really meant to bend them very much. So I made my first entrance in Act 2 down a 7.5-metre pole in yellow stockings and suspenders, feet first into a black hole. So they listened, and then they threw all that out. But it's now my favourite entrance I've ever made. And I'm quite good at height now.
I saw the production twice. First time I saw it with my friend and colleague Helen Mountfield. Where's Helen? And that Helen, in fact, was an undergraduate with Sams, and I think you might have even made theatre together in.
I worked for Helen as a director, when she was directing me.
And the second time I saw it with my daughter, I took my daughter back and saw it, and that on both occasions, the final scene, when you reappear and discover the extent of the gulling that has been done to you and the delusion that you have been under, is unbelievably painful. Can I just describe a little bit of business, or do you want to describe
Please do.
So there's a moment in which it is explained to him that the letter that he has found and has believed to be an account of the Countess Olivia loving him, and that it is his call to rise, to shed his role as a steward, and to inherit the future that has been waiting for him. It's a Cinderella moment, and that he has embraced it with the most extraordinary willingness, wearing all of the obstruction in the blood, slightly bondage evocative gear that Sam wore, coming down the pole, smiling like a Cheshire cat, as instructed to do, putting himself through all of these discomforts and indignities because he believes it's what Olivia wants of him. And then he's taken away as a madman and tormented, perhaps tortured, even in various ways as a result. And then in public is made to face what an idiot he has been by buying this. And that the letter is shown to him, and he rips it up and throws it on the floor and turns to storm out. And he doesn't make it out, because he then turns and he looks at the bits of paper that are on the floor that represent the dream that he temporarily had, that the Countess might love him. And despite the fact that the indignity of this perhaps exceeds all the other indignities that have preceded it, because now it's knowing. He can't bear to let it go completely, and as a result, he comes back in and he gathers up the bits of discarded paper that tell the lie that he bought, and he exits holding those bits as a memory of a dream that was entirely illusory. And it's unbearable, Sam, and rather wonderful. How did that bit of business come to be?
In 2 bits, thank you for describing it so beautifully. That's really means a lot. In 2 bits, I thought, I think he's got to tear up the letter, hasn't he? And I'm sure somebody's done that. And then I thought, no, but he can't leave the bits behind because he was happy. So I just said, I think I might go and get them. And Laura said, oh, that's good. She puts on that low thing. That's good. I thought, I think that might be good. I don't think anybody else has done that. So yeah, I was really pleased. Incidentally, when you mentioned that thing coming in bondage gear, all this, I thought, because you brilliantly pointed out the fact that when Orsino is in love, he doesn't even need Olivia to play his own love scene. He is tortured, he's tortured by his own desires. It's entirely self-contained. He's in love with love. Olivia is in love with grief. Malvolio is in love with himself. But briefly, Malvolio isn't in love with himself. He does all of this in order to woo Olivia. And you think, well, it may be ridiculous, but at least he's doing it. Where's Orsino? You know, he says, oh, I'm so over here, it hurts so much, but he's not outside, he sent somebody else. He's not at the foot of the rose tree going, Juliet, throw down a rope, what are we up there now? He's just sort of lying on a couch, oh, it's so difficult. At least Malvolio does it. You see, I suppose what I'm coming back is, you know, play somebody from their own point of view.
Yeah.
Don't comment. He's a ridiculous figure by accident. And the more serious you take, the better he is. And the more, first of all, the more seriously he takes himself, the funnier it is. But also, the better he is at his job, the more disruptive it is, the more 12th night topsy-turvy, the world upside down it is, when he gives it up. Because he's got lots of other things to do that day. You know, he's still got all these guests drinking him out of house and home. When he comes in to try and break up that party, it's 3 in the morning on Christmas morning. Go to bed. You know, everybody goes, oh, he comes in his nightcap looking ridiculous. No, it's 3 in the morning. My mistress can't sleep. Go to bloody bed. He's absolutely on the right, he's on a strong footing there. And all Toby can say is, dost thou think because thou art, that there will be no more cakes and ale? Which is a really good question. But they've both got a point.
We have 6 or 7 minutes left in this segment. I don't know if anyone else would like to ask Samuel a question. Guy, can we bring a microphone to Guy in the second row here? Thank you, George.
Hello.
During the run, did your portrayal of Malvolio change slightly as you kind of developed the part? And if it did, how did it change?
Can I just repeat the question, because I'm not entirely sure that microphone is on. So Guy's question was, across the course of the run of Twelfth Night, did your playing of Malvolio change or develop in any way?
This is going to sound so cheap. I put in a set of false teeth during previews. When I did a series that not many people remember, and with good reason, a few years ago called The Midwich Cuckoos. In the original, the cuckoos are all blonde and blue-eyed, and one can't do that anymore. Quite right, too. So the cuckoos all had perfect teeth. And I played a grown-up cuckoo. So I had these false teeth that made me look really like Matt Hancock. I mean, really, really like Matt Hancock. It's like I was auditioning for the Matt Hancock tribute band. And I thought, okay, I don't have very many lines with these teeth in, but when I smile, it really changes it. So I wore them for the bit where he comes down and smiles. That's not much of a change, is it? I got more confident at working at height. And I think, the honest answer is that the spikes got spikier and the depths got deeper. They generally do. You know, I tend to approach things from below, but I pushed myself higher into the spikes and downer into the depths.
Perhaps I can ask you a related question, which is because the audience is so much of a participant and a driver of the action in comedies, as we were talking about earlier, and specifically and explicitly, we are laughing and ministering occasion, we, the audience, to the joke. If you played the Malvolio that you had found through the rehearsal process and thought about his backstory, but audiences will vary in how they, tell us how your engagement with audiences or audiences' engagements with you felt different on different nights.
The first thing is, are they coughing? Are they coughing more than twice a minute? Because that means they're not listening. Or else there's a very bad cold going round, but it's usually that they're not listening. So if you drop your voice and do something quite truthfully, they stop coughing. And you think, oh God. So it wasn't that you've really got a cold, it's just that I wasn't good enough. And if I was on top of it, I could stop people laughing when I said, I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you. And I did that every performance but two. And some audiences just really wanted to laugh there. But I went back and I looked at them until they stopped. Damn them. I tell you what's really interesting about the Minister occasion. The great performance in this production is Michael Grady Hall as Feste. We may get to revive it at Christmas in London, fingers crossed. If we do, go and see Michael Grady Hall as Feste. It is a performance for the ages. He's really sunny in the middle of the play. He moves, as your brilliant graphic makes clear, effortlessly between the two courts, almost like he's disobeying the laws of physics. It takes Valentine 4 hours to get there, and Cesaria slightly less because she's younger. But Feste seems to just sort of shift. He's a really sunny clown, and that's very, very useful for Malvolio. I've seen, probably you've seen, performances where Feste has been played as a melancholy fool, and it's great for Feste, but it doesn't work for the play, because it leaves no room for Malvolio. But there was one really good bit where Mike wasn't sunny, and it's that bit where I say, I marvel that your ladyship takes delight in such a barren rascal. I saw him put down the other day with an ordinary fool that hath no more brain in him than a stone. And we identified this fool. He was called Special Robert. And he was in some Illyrian square. And he fell over a lot and farted. And so Malvolio thought he was quite good. He wasn't at all to Feste's taste. But Malvolio says, he was funnier than you. And he was rubbish. And Feste looks at him. How bloody dare you? How dare you give a freelance clown a 1-star review? If you do that, I don't eat. Those coins you're talking about me picking up, they dry out. And in the last act, you can have Festes who go, thus the whirligig of time brings in his revenges. What a nonsense that was. What was the point of all that? He put a yellow nose on my face and said, thus the whirligig of time brings in his revenges. Don't give me a bad review, because I will screw you up. And it was a great cable running through the play that he didn't, just as you said, he remembered. At the point where the play needs to forget, he remembered, and I was damned.
We have time for one more question. Oh, Hannah's giving me permission to take two.
I'll try not to answer them quite so long.
Josie at the back, can we take the microphone over here? Hang on, just wait for the microphone, Josie, it's with you now. Thank you.
Really struck by this idea of the chronology of the plays and the feeling that Othello is coming, because Othello is the next gulling plot, with Iago pulling the wool over Othello's eyes. And I wondered, for both of you really, whether you can see that in the Malvolio plot, and in this tipping over from comedy that doesn't work anymore, and where the loose ends aren't all beautifully tied up, that it's all going horribly wrong, and ultimately where we get to is a comic
Strangulation of your
structure
wife.
in a tragedy?
Gosh, that's a good question, isn't it?
Shall I go?
Yeah,
Okay.
go on.
So when I think of Othello in the run of Shakespeare's writing career, I think about it looking backwards to Much Ado About Nothing, and forwards, although it doesn't know it yet, to The Winter's Tale. So that run of plays, so Much Ado from the late 1590s, Othello from 1604, Winter's Tale from probably 1610, all of them are the story of a woman who is wrongly accused of unchastity in some way. But they constitute, generically, they constitute a masterclass in an understanding of genre. So in Much Ado About Nothing, the woman who is wrongly accused of unchastity dies for a night and is resurrected the next day, and all ends happily. It's a comedy. In Othello, the woman who is wrongly accused of adultery dies for real, and she doesn't come back. And there's a kind of brittleness of the outcome of that, which is irrevocable. So the comic impulse is, I guess that was painful, but we need to find a way to bring this back into the happy zone. Let's do it. Othello is, there is no way back from this. And then The Winter's Tale catches something from Much Ado and something from Othello, and it respins it as tragicomedy, in which the woman who has been wrongly accused of adultery is dead. And she is dead for 16 years of pain and self-accusation by the man who realizes that he has wrongly accused her. And that pain is real, and it is never going to go away. And yet, the non-concessionary ending of Othello is too hard. Shakespeare now wants to believe in, I don't want to pretend this is all going to be easy. It isn't going to be easy. You can't get over 16 years of that kind of level of extravagant and unnecessary betrayal without that carrying scars for life. But at the same time, I choose to believe that there might be some version of a way back. Let's see if we can navigate it through to something without denying the scars that are going to be across all of that. So that run feels like a masterclass in give me a story, a woman, and I will give you the comic version of it. I will give you the tragic version of it, and I will give you the tragic-comic version of it as well. I mean, Shakespeare does that across other runs as well, but we don't have time to talk about that. So that you do feel, knowing what order the plays come in is so much more than a boring bit of information about dates. It's a way of reading the thematic interest, the linguistic ticks, but also the heart, where the heart is going, and what kind of ending he would like to steer us through to. So understanding what comes before what is, it feels to me a sort of a necessary condition for understanding what's at play in the dramatist's mind as he's dealing with this bit of material in front of us right now. Sam.
Bravo. Follow that. I can't. It's an incredible answer. Great question. I would just add that the similarity, I think, is to bring it round to the man, but from the man's point of view, the terrible similarity is that people who are very good at lying meet somebody who's very good at believing them. And if you're Othello and built for jealousy, you just have to hope that you don't meet somebody like Iago, who lies because he's really good at it, and he likes the fact that people believe him, and he hates you. And you do, and it's terrible. I can't watch the play for that reason. It's just sort of awful. Once it's happened, it can't unhappen. Whereas at least Malvolio, I mean, he's destroyed, but he doesn't die. The very, very brilliant piece of business at the end of Declan Donnellan's production, where he saved the line, I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you. and it was the last line of the play. And the party went on, and Malvolio went off sadly. And they were all dancing. And he came on, he said, I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you. And they all looked down into their glasses of champagne. And it was a blackout.
Bravo in return. It is a brilliant question, and actually it kind of makes me think about what the intention of those doing the gulling is, which is not entirely clear in Twelfth Night. No. They seem to believe that we'll have the bear again and we'll bruise him black and blue or whatever it is, but it feels like it's for japes. We'll do this as a joke, and then it just gathers its own demonic momentum, and that they can't resist being taken into those dark corners, or maybe they always had it in mind that they, given half a chance, they would.
I think it's Toby. The others want to stop. I think it's booze. I really do. Once you get a Toby who plays him properly dark, it unlocks that really well, I think. Makes it all rather serious. And
then similarly with Iago, actually what is his game plan and why? And he has so many reasons why. You start wondering, whether he just hates him because he hates him. And that, he's done my business between the sheets, and he's preferred somebody else over me in promotion, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, great question, Josie, thank you. I'm looking at Hannah. Should we close it up now? Oh, Hannah's saying we can take one more. Excellent. Would anyone else have a question? Yes. Can you just wait for the microphone, Chris? Thank you. George is bringing it now. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you both for such a fascinating talk.
It's not on.
Really brilliant. Sam, you said that you take your roles very seriously. There's a lot of preparation that goes in. And I noticed that very smart yellow book, The 12th Night, on the back of 2024. And I suspect that on your shelves you've got lots of neatly lined out ones. And I can see inside a bit, there's a lot of notes, I think, and kind of preparation gone into it. I just wonder if you could talk a bit about how you go about approaching an immense role like this.
Okay. Very, very briefly, because we didn't rehearse an enormous amount of depth about the world and society. If we had, this would be fatter and certainly more detailed. First thing is the cast, which is quite large, so try and learn them. And who they're understudying. The understudies were really good. Actually, the young understudies were brilliant. I'm very fond of saying that young understudies can't do verse, and I was completely wrong. 10 questions to play a scene. 1, who am I? 2, where am I? 3, when is it? 4, where have I just come from? 5, what do I want? 6, why do I want it? 7, why do I want it now? 8, what will happen if I don't get it now? How will I get what I want? By doing what? And what must I overcome? So for Malvolio entering in yellow stockings, who am I? Simon Malvolio, sex god. Where am I? In my lady's bedchamber. When is it? 4:20 on Christmas Day. Where have I just come from? My bedchamber after a last look in the pier glass. What do I want? To seduce and please my mistress. Why do I want it? This is the best day of my life. This is what I was born to do. This is my destiny. Why do I want it now? Forgive me saying this. I've got 59 years of frustration in my balls. What will happen if I don't get it now? I'll burst. How will I get what I want? By doing what? By making love to her in the way she wants me to do it. What must I overcome? A slight self-consciousness about the way I'm dressed, a feeling that I may look slightly ridiculous, and my legs going to sleep. That's so. And then you enter and you speak with those intentions. 4 lists. What the author says about me, Malvolio, steward to Olivia. That's all he says. So I had to know what a steward was. What other people say about me. Oh, you are sick of self-love, Malvolio, and taste with a distempered appetite. Very famous line, but what does sick of self-love actually mean? It's quite hard, that. Do you take yourself too seriously? I don't know. What I say about other people. Oh, sorry, what I say about myself. what I say about me, and then facts. Then the complete servant, butler, valet, thoughts.
I think what we're seeing is a man whose attention to detail in the preparation of a part is awesome, and
I've got to say one more thing, sorry.
yeah, you say your thing. Go ahead.
My dad died during rehearsals, and we opened exactly a month after he died. And it was 8 months ago now, but the extraordinary thing was, first of all, he died exactly at the right time. Beautiful, impeccable timing as ever. I went straight from the funeral to the last day of rehearsal in London and then to Stratford. But this play, which is so much two-sided about grief and joy, and how important it is to find joy in grief. It's Feste's point, isn't it? That's Feste. If you take Feste's songs seriously, they're all about loss. Something terrible's happened to him. We don't know. And it was just the most brilliant play to be doing when you've been bereaved, with the most wonderful supportive company in an amazing place. So I couldn't really have... And people said, oh, you're so brave to go on, a month later. And I thought, no, this is exactly what I need to be doing. And also, if he was here, the last thing he said to me was, where are you going to rehearse? So that was good.
Thank you. I think the effortlessness of the seaming is underpinned, as so often across fields, by the most extraordinary work that's gone on behind it. Sam, thank you for giving so many of us so much enjoyment when we've watched you on stage, on screen, and also for your candid and really interesting responses today. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.